circus, different clowns. This is a term that is widely used on the New York City Fire Department, possibly on every other department. I don't know. My only experience is New York City Fire Department. Same circus, different clowns. I've never heard the term before I got on the job, right? So it's just like a funny thing. I'm going to give you my, it probably sounds pretty easy to understand. It's just cut and dry. But I'm going to give you my interpretation of same circus, different clowns. Also, it can be used as a metaphor in life, and I'm going to get to that as well. But on the fire department, the same circus, different clowns phase is basically just everyone is interchangeable. You got your job. This job is rich in history. Over 150 years old, tried and true through battles, the war years. Fire is just now in a new age of firefighting. And really, you can go back decade upon decade upon decade, and guys are like kind of wearing the same thing. They kind of all got mustaches, running the same jokes, playing the same pranks, fighting fires, for the most part, the same way, aggressive interior attack, at least in the New York City Fire Department. That's just how it is. It's been the same circus for years and years and years and years and years. But obviously, you got different clowns. Now, in the firehouse, you have many different personalities. These guys are your brothers, but there's at minimum 40 different personalities in a double house, right? You got your lieutenants, you got all your firemen, you got your guy who's the biggest clown, you got your guy who's the biggest muscle head, you got your real buff guys who are really, really into the job, you got your guys who are real bags of shit. Like, don't get the job twisted, man. It's the greatest job in the world, and 90% of the guys, 95% of the guys are great. They're your brothers. They'll do anything for you. They want to fight fires, but there's that few percent that are just bags of shit. They don't want to be there. They're one-way guys. They just suck. And every house has got them. Every job has got them. But they're there too. You got your guys that, play the same pranks on everybody, the prankster. You got the guy that just wants to get home to his family, who's the only guy with a house and kids on the job. You got your guy that's the good cook. You got all that stuff. And you can interchange those guys with any house and any company on the job, right? Because the job still acts the same way. There's 300-something companies on the New York City Fire Department. And you could plug a guy in from anywhere and plug him into another borough or another company, and he'll pretty much have the lay of the land pretty quickly. How they respond, how they get their gear on together. He puts his gear on pretty much the same way as everybody else. How they pull out of quarters, how they cook, and where their bunk rooms are, and the weight rooms, and the TV rooms, and all that shit. So it's literally the same circus. And you go to a different house, you go to that same circus with those different clowns, and you're expected to know your job. You're expected, whatever position that they give you for the day, you're expected to know what the fuck you're doing. You're expected to know, even a new guy. If you're a probie, if you got a pumpkin patch on, they might be like, we got to keep an eye on this guy. But even a new guy, if you got a front piece that says your company, now you're representing that company in a different in a different house, but it's the same circus. And now they're expecting you to know what you're doing, because if something happens and you don't know your job, they're all going to think everybody from that company is a bag of shit because you didn't know your job. So that's something to think about too as a new guy. That's a tip. Know your job, especially when you go on details. Check the rigs, do all that stuff. You're under the same big top. Find out where everything is on the rig. They might be putting places in different spots. Check your mask. Do all that stuff that you would do in your firehouse. Get the lay of the land under the same circus, but you got different clowns with you. Because now these different clowns, you don't know them, but they all probably are going to respond the same way. You know they're all going to get on the rig, but you don't know these guys. But you can after a while, you can go, oh man, that guy kind of reminds me of so-and-so, and that guy kind of reminds me of Joe or Steve or whatever, whoever the case may be. Everyone is interchangeable. I always like to say that the fire department is like a time warp. You could go back in the 60s and 70s and you walk in a kitchen and everybody's wearing blue shirts and mustaches, and they'll throw the same fucking lame ass jokes that we still think are funny at you. 40 years later, 50 years later, you can walk into a kitchen, it'll be almost like the same thing. cooking the same way, laughing, breaking balls, smoking cigars, the whole 9 yards. Guys is talking about fires, all sorts of stuff. It's like you're all in a time capsule in the fire department. And it's pretty cool because for the most part, you love the job. You love the guys. You love fighting fire. You love the jokes. You love sitting at the table and doing all that stuff. So, it's really the same. It really is the same, just different guys. Same circus, different clowns. I love that phrase. I think it's hysterical. It could be used as a positive or a negative. In the fire department, I think for the most part, it's a positive. But you can also have a negative because when shit's fucked up, when shit goes bad, you get, man, same circus, different clowns. It probably all just depends on your mindset. And speaking of your mindset and how things relate to, that phrase relates to your personal life. If you're somebody who's in a bad place, people around you are bringing you down, they're just keeping you negative, you're in self-destructive behavior, whether it's drugs, alcohol, violence, crime, whatever the case may be. Maybe you're just, you're not present with your family, or you're a bad father, or whatever the case may be. And you're hanging out with different people and still doing the same shit and still getting into the same kind of trouble, even as you get older, as you're supposed to mature, you're running in the same circus, just with different clowns. As we get older, we meet different people and get different friend groups. I mean, you still have your friend groups from when you're young, but if those friend groups from when you're young were negative, or just kept you down, kept you from going where you should go, then it's the same fucking circus. And you meet new people and you still contribute to that self-destructive behavior and continue with drugs and alcohol and terrible fucking choices in life. It's just different clowns. You're just doing it with different clowns. You got to get out of that rut. You can't go from one corner to the other still doing the same behavior that you're doing, because you're just going to find out with those guys, those different clowns, you're still running under the same circus, same big top, pulling the same shit that you've done, and you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to propel ahead in life. You got to look in the mirror and make a decision, and that's on you. You're going to keep hanging out with in the same circus with different clowns, still doing the same shitty behavior. That's on you now. When you're growing up and you're not mature, you can kind of say I'm a product of my environment and this, that, and the other thing, and these guys brought me down. But if you don't get out of that and mature out of that, then it's on you now. You got to look in the mirror and you got to make a decision. Get out of that fucking circus. Get away from those clowns. All right? In the firehouse, it's just so great. I love those clowns. There's some that I don't get along with. A lot of personalities, and you're not going to get along with everybody. It's the truth. You're just not. And you can go to other firehouses, and you might think, man, that's the same guy that I see in my firehouse. He does the same shit, square roots the same bullshit, always weekends off, holidays, never steps up for anybody. Same circus, different clowns. Now check it out. Check out, I don't know if you guys can see it, the Getting Salty Brothers sent me a care package. Nice t-shirt, love it. Check them out. I think they're in Indy right now. Go to their podcast on YouTube or anywhere you can find podcasts, Getting Salty. My episode was episode 242. Check that out. I really appreciate those guys. I believe I'm going to be hanging out with them very soon. Not sure, but that's in the works. So thanks for the t-shirt, brothers. And that's about it. Remember, it must be true if you heard it at the kitchen table. Take care.